We have 60 of the greatest people in our company, and employees, but more than that, we're like team members. We don't even think of ourselves as employers or employees, but what a team we have here. And I know Tim, Tim. I've been standing, meeting people. Tim's here, so they're hilarious. Wow, amazing. 10 years ago, I met Tim at Daytona, right? Uh, and I understand you've got some pretty famous people with you today. I understand. Is Dale here? Is Dale? Yes. Wow. I was just thinking, and you mentioned in addition to Dale, are there other? I saw Michael Waltrip. I mean, is Michael there? He is. And did I see Ryan? Is Ryan here too?
He is somewhere.
I saw Ryan
somewhere.
Right there. Oh, there he is. I was just. And Grant, you're here too, right? Is Grant there? Hey, Grant. Now, who else is here? Tim. Who am I missing? Tim.
An awesome band and a lot of awesome
employees
of Current Records.
I was just thinking of something. Dale Jr. I mean, I met Dale again in Indianapolis, and obviously I was involved in a little bit of a miracle years ago with Dale Sr. The fact that we call him Dale Sr., you can tell the impact that Dale Jr. had. We refer to Dale Sr. as Dale Sr. now. But I was looking at that car where they actually cut off our logo there. But that car in 1980, and I don't, Dale, you may be the only one who knows the story better than I do, but Dale had been injured in '79, and when he was injured, he had a California car owner named Osterman, and they got caught up in this huge issue of the savings and loan, the recession, and apparently, and in '79 he ran a partial schedule, so they were going to run a partial schedule in 1980, and the first race used to be in Riverside, and of course, my wife and I grew up in California, so we went out to the Riverside race, and Les Richter and Bill France Jr. took me aside and said, "Look, we want Dale to run the whole year. Will you commit?" I said, "Well, but I had just been elected at that time, lieutenant governor, and Reagan was running for president. It was just and with all the pressures on our business, I said, Bill, there is no way I can get involved in this." He said, "But you can have an option to buy the cars and buy the team." Anyway, we went ahead and did it. And would you believe he won Martinsville, Bristol, Charlotte, Nashville. The Nashville was called the 420. 5 races Dale won, and then the championship. Now, what are the odds? In the car, there was, of course, on the super speedways we had the Olds, but that's the car. Actually, that is the car that won the Nashville. It was called I think it was the Music City 420 back then. And they don't run it, of course. And Michael, you raced many times there, and am I seeing? That's not who I think it is. You're not. Where did I meet you? I thought for a minute you were Dale Jarrett, and I said, "No, you're not. Doesn't he look like Dale Jarrett?" Yeah. Okay. I thought, oh my goodness, I didn't introduce Dale. All right. So anyway, long story short, then of course some other things happened, and there was a fellow named J.D. Stacy who was buying up all the teams, and I had to get back into what I was doing. But then 2 or 3 years later, out of the blue, I got a call from Bill France Jr. He said, "Mike, do you still have the shop in Kannapolis where you have the Dale cars?" I said, "Yes, we do, but by that time I was in Washington, and I had accepted a position with President Reagan, and I was now ready, but I was able to kind of transition back in my business." And Bill France said, "No, we're going to put a different team together now for '84. And I said, "Well, what team?" He said, "Well, Richard Petty had a big issue at Charlotte. I don't know if you remember, in 1983, at the second Charlotte race, which is usually around, it's a road race now, but it used to be in the first week of October. and there had been a huge issue about an oversized engine. There's probably people in this room who remember the issue, but he won the race at Charlotte. It was his 198th victory in '83, but there was a huge issue of the oversized engine. Well, they weren't going to ban Richard Petty, obviously, so they banned his brother, who was from being a car owner and crew chief, and they decided to put Richard Petty in my car. And I said, but I said to Bill France Jr., but we don't have a crew chief. He said, yes, you do. Buddy Parrott is available. He's going to be the crew chief. I said, but who's going to build the engines? Don't worry. Dygaard has agreed to build. He had the whole thing mapped out. Anyway, to make a long story short, Richard Petty got in our car. In fact, there's the picture of it right there. And then he won his 199th victory at Dover. And then we went to Daytona. And President Reagan, about 1 month before Daytona, President Reagan had a meeting in his office. There were like 7 or 8 people there. And he said, I want to do something on the 4th of July. And so there were like 7 or 8 of us in the room, and we said, well, what are we going to, what do you want to do? He said, well, I don't want to speak. I don't want to do a campaign speech on the 4th of July. I want to maybe lay a wreath at Arlington for our great veterans. So I said, well, what about going to Daytona? Just because I knew I knew that President Reagan had announced sprint car races when he was in Des Moines, Iowa, and he was a big sports fan. So I said, what about Daytona? And he said, I've been watching that. He said, who are those? I watched those guys who were in the fight. He was obviously talking about Cale and Donnie and Bobby in the 1979 race where they had the fight right at where your brother won the race, right? He won it in '79, didn't he? When they had the
second.
'79?
Yeah, Richard won it.
Oh, that's right. Richard won it. He was second. That's right. And then neither Cale and Donnie didn't finish. They were stuck up at that corner fighting, right? Which is all we saw. Yeah. Well, wow. What a day. Anyway, long story short, all the people in the room, when I said, well, what about going to Daytona on the 4th of July? It's Florida. It's a very important state. He was running for re-election in '84. And everybody in the room looked at me like I was an idiot. So I thought, well, I better stay quiet. And then about 10 minutes later, President Reagan said, I might want to go to that. That would be interesting. Immediately, everybody in the room turned around and thought it was a great idea. Well, anyway, I called Bill France Jr. and of course, everybody who knows him knows that he was a genius when it would come to any kind of TV production, any kind of setting. And the work that he did to put it together was unbelievable. I guess we all miss him every day. Anyway, I was just thinking as I'm looking around at the drivers here, do you realize how many Talladega? I mean, Michael, you won Talladega. Dale, you won it. I stopped counting after 6, and plus you won the Xfinity. I mean, is it 6 or 7 counting? Am I somewhere in the neighborhood of Talladega? And then and Ryan, you won it this year, didn't you? Ryan Blaney won it this year, and of course Grant Enfinger in our truck. Grant Enfinger won Talladega. And by the way, are the Thorsons here? Is Duke here? He was gonna. Allison, yeah. Well, thank you. Say hello to your dad. He's our partner in the truck. And Grant won the regular season championship. Did a great job. I think he had like 47 top 10s in the last 2 years. Unbelievable consistency. Anyway, when you really think about how many did I leave out any Talladega? I should have said, are there anybody here who didn't win Talladega? But I mean, it's just phenomenal. And of course, we know what Tim Duggar thinks about Alabama, right? So Tim, it looks like you've put together a new Alabama gang here. And you've got the best friends you could possibly have. There isn't a better person in this world than Tim Duggar. I mean, there just isn't a better person. I met him 10 years ago. My friend Richard Childress introduced me. He said, Mike, I had helped him a little bit when he was getting reunited. Dale had had driven. Richard was the classic independent driver. He had the number 3 RC, what was it, RC Chemical, you raced with him as well, right? Well, we have a lot of Daytona winners here too. We have two-time winner, and Dale a two-time. My goodness, wow. We feel a little humbled here. Anyway, long story short, well, all right. Let me just say, Tim, when Richard Childress years ago was in the RCA Chemicals number 3 car, he was the independent driver. I mean, he had as many he had more top 10s than Grant Enfinger, but never a victory. But he was always there, always racing. And when the issue developed, and J.D. Stacy bought out the racing teams, 5 or 6 teams, Dale didn't want to be a part of it, and so Dale jumped into Richard's car, and he ran it, but nothing was happening. He was unhappy. So then Wrangler came along, and Wrangler wanted to move him over to Bud Moore to drive a Ford. So he did that. Ricky Rudd got into Childress's car, and then all of a sudden one day Richard said to me, you know, next time you talk to Dale, tell him he should come back. And I said, well, he's signed with Bud Moore. I don't know what Wrangler. Anyway, to make a long story short there, I had a meeting in my hotel room in Charlotte with Dale and Richard has talked about it many times. And you could just see the chemistry between Richard Childress and Dale. I mean, they wanted to hunt together. They wanted to do everything. It was the, I don't take credit for putting it together, but Richard, for one reason or another, felt that I could be helpful at that time. So I wasn't, but I was sure happy to see them come together and win 6 championships. But then Richard, years later, said, I'm going to do you a favor. I'm going to introduce you to a star. And his name is Tim Duggar. And I, in the last 10 years, I have never seen anyone work harder than Tim. Tim loves motorsports. I mean, he loves everything about Alabama. He loves everything about Daytona. Loves everything about NASCAR. And what we found over the years in our company, you know, it took Tim McGraw 6 or 7 singles before he got his first hit. Rodney Atkins, it took Rodney 8 years before he had Going Through Hell and had his first hit. He went through hell before he had the hit record Going Through Hell. I think about Lee Brice. Look what Lee Brice went through 7 or 8 years as a songwriter. I was talking to Hannah Ellis back there, is one of our songwriters. Where are you, Hannah? Hi. Are any of our other songwriters here today? Hey, how are you? All right, well, we got some great songwriters here. But in any event, here Lee worked for 8 years as a songwriter before he had his first hit, Love Like Crazy. And then one after another, Love Like Crazy, Parking Lot Party, I Don't Dance, you know, I Drive Your Truck, Hard to Love, A Woman Like You. I mean, one hit after another, and then this year with Rumor being one of the top hits of the year. But they all had, all those artists, whether it was Lee Brice, Tim McGraw, Rodney Atkins, all these artists who had success at this company, all went through so many years getting to where they could compete. And you really can tell the strength of an artist when you see when they work for so many years building up. And I'll tell you, this new EP that you've done, I called Tim about 3 weeks ago and said, you know, that song "You're Gonna Love Me" on there. I don't know if you've heard it, but he says the lyric is, if you love Earnhardt and you love your mama's cooking, and you're gonna love me. I mean, but the way he sings it, it reminded me of the first time I heard "Live Like You Were Dying" by Tim McGraw. It was, you know, it's one of those songs that kind of goes right through you. But Tim, you are going to have a big year this year. Everybody in this room is here because of you, and you've brought together NASCAR royalty. You've brought together our great team of people. This is a great team of people, and I'm telling you, they're ready. They are ready for this. And you know, I'm trying to find the transition am I gonna get to introduce you to, is there something else? Do I get to bring you up now? Come on up,
Yeah,
Tim.
you can bring
Why
me
don't
up.
you come up? Rescue me.
Yeah.
Are you ready to start your show?
Yeah, well,
Wow. All right, let me say again, thank you to everyone who's here today. And you're going to hear a good reason why we are so blessed to have Tim Duggar with our company. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Make some noise for Mr. Mike Curry.
Yeah.
He's done a lot, and the two things that I love is country music and racing, and he is country music and racing. So thank y'all for coming out. We're gonna play y'all a couple songs from the new EP. You can dance. I doubt it that you will, but you're welcome to. Okay? You don't have to be married to him. Got a couple of my co-writers on this song here. Sun going down on the banks of the bayou, string of tail lights rolling through the pines. Tied up, tight eyes, me oh my oh, signs of a good time. Flick a big spark to an empty beer box, laying on the bottom of a dead red oak. Cow patty kickers all kicking in the boondocks, don't need a map, just follow that smoke. Signs of a good time, high on a good life, wide mouth Mason, chasing down a peach pie, B-Y-O, cold beer. There ain't no 45 out here. Take a truck, low gear, shortcut, John Deere. Honky tonk in the woods, got the girls on the hood, and that's a real good sign of a good time. Old school news, I'm a fiddle on a beat. Hollywood pretties tipping white claws back, no GPS out in BFE. Come a country mile past them, no trespassing. Time high on a good life, white mountain racing, chasing down a fish pie, B-Y-O, there ain't no 45 out here. Take a truck, all gear, shortcut, John Deere. Honky tonk in the woods, got the girls on the hood, and that's a real good sign of a good time. Everywhere I look, I'm seeing to the left, to the right, I'm seeing them natty light bodies got me feeling on. Yeah, I'm feeling on, I'm seeing I'm believing on, I ain't leaving now. Signs of a good time, high on a good life, wide mountain Mason, chasing down a peach pie, B-Y-O, cold beer. There ain't no 45 out here. Take a truck, low gear, shortcut, John Deere. Honky tonk in the woods, got the girls on the hood, and that's a real good sign of a good time. Yeah, we're looking for a good time. We're gonna have one here in a little bit. Thank y'all.
Yeah.
So, this next song I found, a couple years ago, I had this song pitched to me, and I had it on a link, and I held on to it. And when we were going through songs, looking to cut stuff, the chorus spoke to me. It felt like something that I wish I'd written. Because I'm kind of influenced. My mom and dad are older, and I've been told I'm kind of old-fashioned a little bit, and I like just sitting at a little dive bar playing the jukebox, just like my dad used to. And so this is a song called "You're Gonna Love Me." Reminds me of my wife a little bit, because she used to not like the stuff I like, but she learned to love it. set in my ways. I still believe that love can last forever and a day. I think honesty honestly makes a man, the kind that looks to the end of his arm for a helping hand. Girl, I don't want to waste your time, so I'm laying it all on the line. I still miss her heart, I like a cold beer now and then. I'm all about my mama, take a bullet for a friend. And I like old Chevys covered in rust, the hang the flag and God we trust. Girl, by now I'm how I'm gonna be. If you like that, you're gonna love me. If you like riding around in a two-tone wasted gas, windows down, old school sounds, and a dog in the back, well then girl, I believe you're a lot like me. Yeah, I still miss her heart, I like a cold beer now and then. I'm all about my mama, take a bullet for a friend. And I like old Chevys covered in rust, the hang the flag and God we trust. Girl, by now I'm how I'm gonna be. If you like that, well, you're gonna love me, and I'm gonna love you back. Now y'all should know I still miss her heart, I like a cold beer now and then. I'm all about my mama, I take a bullet for a friend. And I like old Chevys covered in rust, the hack, the flag, and God we trust. Girl, by now I'm how I'm gonna be. If you like that, well, you're gonna love me. Girl, you're gonna love me. Thank y'all.
Yeah.
And we got one more, and it's this song I wrote with a couple guys a couple years ago, and I grew up liking Schoolhouse Rock and Conjunction Johnson, What's Your Function, all that stuff. So it's kind of an adult version of that. And since NASCAR, they're going to be doing the burnouts tomorrow night on Broadway, which Blaney, try not to take out a pedal tavern or a bachelorette party. That might be a bad start to the relationship here in Nashville. But so this song is called Circles, and after this song, you're gonna know that Circles is the best shape ever. If you were wondering what is the best shape, it's gonna tell you. Like the bubbles floating in my beer, circles. Like a bobber when I'm fishing off the pier, circles. Like a quarter in the jukebox, dropped at the Waffle House. Everywhere I look around, I see circles, circles. Like the wheels on my truck and the radio dial, the left-hand turns of a NASCAR mile. Girls on the dance floor spinning around, the moon coming up, the sun going down. Rain on the drinker, rain on the bar, a hole in the middle of my old guitar. The world is a ball, y'all. It's all about circles, circles. It's all about circles. There's a bill sitting in my mailbox, a rectangle. I got a neighbor when I party called the cops, square man. I got a nail from the